I didn't cry at the wedding. Everyone expected me to. My mom kept dabbing her eyes like she was the one being forced into something she didn't choose, and my aunt leaned over at one point and whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. It'll get better." Like I was walking into a prison sentence instead of a marriage. Maybe I was. I remember standing there in that dress I didn't pick, in a venue that felt too small and too quiet for something that was supposed to be the start of a life, staring at a man I barely knew. He wasn't ugly. That would have made it easier. He just looked ordinary. Plain navy suit, worn dress shoes, hair slightly too long like he didn't care enough to get a proper cut before his own wedding. And then there was his daughter. She clung to his leg like she was afraid someone might take him away. Big brown eyes, messy curls, a little white dress that didn't match anything, but somehow made her stand out more than anyone else in that room. She kept looking up at me like she was trying to figure out if I was a good person or not. I didn't know the answer to that. His name was Daniel, 36, widowed, 1 kid. Financially stable, my stepfather had said, like that was supposed to mean something, like stability was a personality trait. I was 24, and no, I didn't choose him. My stepfather did. Not in some dramatic, old-world arranged marriage kind of way. It was quieter than that, colder. He didn't force me with threats or violence. He just made it clear what would happen if I didn't. "You've been living under my roof for 6 years, he said one night, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, his fingers tapping against a stack of unpaid bills. You don't have a real job. Your college situation is a mess, and your mother can't keep covering for you." I stared at him, already knowing where this was going. He's a good man. He needs a wife. You need stability. This solves everything. Everything for who? I asked. For this family, he said, like I wasn't part of it unless I agreed. I laughed. I actually laughed because it sounded insane. You want me to marry a stranger with a kid? He's not a stranger. You met him twice. Twice doesn't count. It's more than enough, he snapped, losing patience. You're not in a position to be picky. That part hit harder than anything else, because he was right. I had dropped out of college after my 2nd year, bounced between part-time jobs that never stuck, and spent most of my time trying to figure out what I even wanted from life. My mom loved me, but she never stood up to him, and financially, we were barely holding on. Daniel, on the other hand, showed up in a clean car, paid for dinner without hesitation, and spoke in this calm, measured way that made him seem safe. Not exciting, not attractive in any way that made my heart move, just safe. "I'm not asking you to fall in love," my stepfather added, softer now, like he was offering me a deal instead of backing me into a corner. "I'm asking you to be smart." And that's how it happened. Not because I believed in it, not because I wanted it, but because saying no felt like jumping off a cliff with no guarantee I'd survive the fall. So I said yes. The first time I went to Daniel's house after the engagement, I expected something small, maybe a cramped apartment, toys scattered everywhere, signs of struggle. Instead, it was modest but clean, organized, quiet in a way that felt intentional. 2 bedrooms. Simple furniture, no clutter. His daughter, Lily, ran up to him the second we walked in, wrapping her arms around his legs like she hadn't seen him in years instead of a few hours. "Daddy, you're late," she said, pouting. "I know, Bug. I'm sorry," he replied, scooping her up like she weighed nothing. I had to pick someone up. That's when she looked at me again. Not shy this time, just curious. "Is she staying?" she asked. Daniel hesitated, just for a second. "She's going to be around more," he said carefully. Lily noted like that was enough, then leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered something I couldn't hear. I stood there awkwardly, feeling like an outsider in a place I was apparently about to call home. "You can sit," Daniel said, gesturing toward the couch. "I'll make some coffee." "I don't need—" "I was going to make some anyway," he cut in, already heading toward the kitchen. I watched him move around like he'd done it 1,000 times, like everything in his life had a system, a rhythm. It was unsettling, because I didn't fit into it. Not then. Not ever, I thought. "You don't talk much," Lily said suddenly, climbing onto the couch next to me. I blinked. "I talk?" "Not really," she shrugged. I almost smiled. "Are you going to be my mom?" she asked, like she was asking if it was going to rain tomorrow. I froze. "No," I said before I could stop myself. Then softer, I don't know." She studied my face for a second, then nodded again like she was collecting data. "Okay," she said, like it didn't bother her. But it bothered me, more than I expected. The weeks leading up to the wedding felt like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Dress fittings, small dinners with Daniel, occasional awkward conversations where we tried to act like this wasn't completely unnatural. He never touched me beyond what was necessary, never tried to kiss me, never even hinted at anything physical. At first, I thought maybe he wasn't attracted to me, which honestly was fine. I wasn't attracted to him either. But then I started noticing things, like how he'd get up at exactly 6 a.m. every day, even on weekends, how he'd take calls outside, always speaking in low tones, how his car, this older, slightly worn sedan, was always spotless inside, like it mattered more than the outside appearance. And the money, or lack of visible money. My stepfather had insisted Daniel was financially stable, but nothing about his lifestyle screamed anything beyond middle class. No flashy watches, no expensive clothes, no signs of excess, just control. "Do you ever relax?" I asked him once, sitting across from him at his kitchen table while he reviewed something on his laptop. "I am relaxed," he replied, without looking up. "That doesn't look relaxed." He glanced at me then, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Looks can be misleading. That was the first time I felt like there was something I wasn't seeing. Not in a mysterious, exciting way, in a guarded way, like he was hiding something. Not from me specifically, just from the world. I should have cared more, but I didn't, because none of it mattered. This wasn't a love story. It was an arrangement, and I treated it like one. I kept my distance emotionally, played the role when I had to, smiled when people looked, stayed quiet when I didn't have anything real to say. Daniel didn't push. If anything, he seemed to respect the distance, which made it easier, and somehow harder. The night before the wedding, I sat in my childhood bedroom, well, the room I'd been staying in, staring at my phone, wondering if there was anyone I could call who would tell me not to do this. There wasn't. Not a single person. That should have been a sign. Instead, I turned off the light and went to sleep. And then the next day, I married him. No tears, no dramatic hesitation, just a quiet I do that felt more like signing a contract than starting a life. That night, when we got back to his house, our house now, Lily was already asleep in her room, exhausted from the day. I stood in the hallway, still in my dress, not knowing what came next. Daniel loosened his tie, then looked at me. "You can take the bedroom," he said. "I'll sleep on the couch." I frowned. "You don't have to do that." "I know," he said simply. There was a pause. "This doesn't have to be anything you're not comfortable with," he added. I nodded, unsure how to respond. "Okay." And that was it. No wedding night, no expectations, just silence. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt unsettled, because nothing about this was normal. And deep down, I had this quiet, persistent feeling that I had just stepped into something far more complicated than I understood. I just didn't know how complicated yet. The first morning I woke up in his house as his wife, I forgot where I was. For a few seconds, I just lay there, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, listening to the quiet. No traffic noise outside my window, no sound of my mom moving around in the kitchen, no TV playing in the background like it always used to. Just silence. Then it hit me. I sat up slowly, the weight of everything settling in all at once. The dress from last night was draped over a chair in the corner, like proof this wasn't some weird dream I could shake off. I was married, to a man I barely knew, with a kid. I rubbed my face, trying to wake myself up fully, and that's when I heard it. Soft footsteps in the hallway, followed by a quiet knock on the door. Not even 2 seconds later, it opened just a crack. "Are you awake?" Lily's voice. I hesitated, then cleared my throat. "Yeah?" She pushed the door open a little more and peeked inside like she was checking if I was still there. "Daddy already made breakfast," she said. "Of course he did." "What time is it?" I asked. 6:43, she replied instantly, like she'd memorized it. I blinked. "That's early." She shrugged. "We wake up early. That word felt strange. "I'll be out in a minute," I said. She nodded, but didn't move right away, just stood there watching me. "What?" I asked, a little more defensive than I meant to. "You look different without makeup," she said. I let out a small laugh despite myself. "That's not a good thing, is it?" She tilted her head, considering it seriously. "You look more real." And then she just turned and walked away, like she hadn't said something that stuck with me way longer than it should have. I got dressed in something simple, jeans and a loose sweater, and walked into the kitchen, bracing myself for the awkwardness. Daniel was already there, standing by the stove, flipping something in a pan. He didn't look up right away, like he already knew I was there. "Morning," he said. "Morning." Lily was sitting at the table, legs swinging slightly, a glass of orange juice in front of her. Everything looked normal, like this was a routine that had been going on long before I showed up. "There's coffee," Daniel added, nodding toward the machine. Thanks. I poured myself a cup, mostly just to have something to do with my hands, and sat down across from Lily. She was watching me again. You stare a lot, I said. You think a lot, she shot back. I raised an eyebrow. You don't even know me. I know enough. Daniel set a plate in front of her, then another one in front of me without asking what I wanted. Eggs, toast, something that smelled better than I expected. Hope that's okay, he said. It's fine. We ate in silence for a bit. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Like I was stepping into a movie halfway through and trying to catch up on the plot. Lily has school at 8, Daniel said after a while. I'll drop her off. Okay. You don't have to come, he added, like he assumed I wouldn't want to. I didn't think I did. Another small pause. If you want to stay here today, get used to the place, that's fine, he continued. There's no rush. No rush. Like this wasn't permanent. Like I had time to adjust to something that had already happened. Do you work? I asked suddenly. He glanced at me, then back at his plate. Yeah? What do you do? Consulting? That was it. Consulting. I waited for him to elaborate, but he didn't. What kind of consulting? Different kinds? I almost smiled at that. You're not very specific. I don't need to be, he replied calmly. There it was again, that wall. Not aggressive, not defensive, just there. Lily finished her food and hopped off her chair. I'm gonna get my bag. Shoes first, Daniel said without looking up. She sighed dramatically, but did it anyway. I watched them for a second, the way they moved around each other like they had their own language, their own rhythm. I didn't belong in it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. After they left, the house felt even quieter than before. I wandered around a little, not really sure what I was supposed to do. It was clean, almost too clean. No piles of laundry, no random clutter. Everything had its place. Even Lily's toys were neatly organized in bins in the corner of the living room. I opened the fridge. Stocked, organized, labeled. Who labels their groceries? I shook my head and closed it, then walked into the hallway. There were only 2 doors, Lily's room and the one I'd slept in. I pushed Lily's door open gently. It was exactly what you'd expect. Small bed, stuffed animals, drawings taped to the walls, crayons on her desk, all lined up by color. I stepped inside, looking around, trying to imagine what her life had been like before me, before her mom was gone, before I showed up out of nowhere. There was a framed picture on her nightstand. Daniel, younger, standing next to a woman with long dark hair and a smile that looked genuine. Lily, much smaller, sitting on his shoulders. They looked happy. I felt something twist in my chest. Not jealousy, not even sadness, just displacement. Like I was standing in someone else's story. I stepped back out and closed the door, not wanting to intrude more than I already had. The rest of the day passed slowly. I tried watching TV, scrolling through my phone, even cleaning a little just to feel useful. But my mind kept wandering back to Daniel, to the way he avoided giving straight answers, to the way everything in his life seemed controlled, deliberate, and to the fact that none of it added up with what my stepfather had told me. Financially stable, that was the phrase. But stability didn't look like this. It didn't feel like this. When Daniel came back that afternoon, Lily ran inside first, her backpack half open, paper sticking out. Guess what? She yelled, dropping it on the floor. What? He asked, closing the door behind him. I got a gold star. For what? For not talking during reading time. He smiled slightly. That's a big achievement. It is, she said seriously. I leaned against the wall, watching them, something unfamiliar settling in my chest. Not warmth, not yet, but something close. Daniel glanced at me. How was your day? Quiet. He nodded, like that made sense. Dinner? He asked. Sure. We fell into another routine that wasn't mine, but that I was now part of. He cooked, Lily talked about school, I listened more than I spoke, and the whole time that feeling kept growing, that something wasn't right. It wasn't anything obvious, it was subtle, like a detail in the background that your brain keeps trying to process, but can't quite place. Later that night, after Lily went to bed, I found him in the living room, sitting on the couch with his laptop open again, working. Always working. You do that a lot, I said, leaning against the doorway. Do what? Work. He glanced up. It's part of the job. What exactly is your job? I asked again, more direct this time. He studied me for a second, then closed the laptop slowly. What do you want to know? He asked. The question caught me off guard. I don't know. Something real, maybe? He leaned back slightly, considering his answer. I deal with companies, he said finally. Help them fix problems, improve things. That sounds vague. It is. Why? Because most people don't actually care about the details, he replied. They just want results. I crossed my arms. And I'm most people? He held my gaze. I don't know what you are yet. That should have annoyed me, but it didn't. If anything, it felt honest. More honest than anything else in this situation. Fair enough, I said quietly. There was a pause. You didn't want this, he said suddenly. It wasn't a question. No, I admitted. Neither did I. That surprised me. Then why did you agree? He looked away for a moment, like he was deciding how much to say. Because it made sense, he said finally. That's not really an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. There it was again, that wall. But this time I saw something else behind it. Not coldness, not indifference, something heavier, like he was carrying something he didn't want to share. I nodded slowly. Okay. We sat there in silence for a while, the distance between us still there, but different, less sharp, less forced. Like maybe under all of this, there was something real trying to exist. I just didn't know what it was yet, and I had no idea how much it was about to change everything. About a week into the marriage, I started noticing the cracks. Not big ones, nothing dramatic, just small things that didn't line up no matter how I tried to explain them away. It started with a phone call. I wasn't trying to snoop. I wasn't that kind of person. At least, I didn't think I was. But when you live in a house that quiet, you start hearing everything, even the things people try to keep low. It was late. Lily had already gone to bed, and I was in the kitchen pouring myself a glass of water when I heard Daniel's voice from the back patio. He almost always took his calls outside.
At first, I thought it was just courtesy. Maybe he didn't want to wake Lily. But now it felt intentional. I moved closer to the sliding door, not enough to be obvious, just enough to catch pieces. No, delay it, he was saying. His tone was calm, but there was an edge to it I hadn't heard before. I don't care what they're expecting. Push it back. A pause. I said, push it back. I leaned slightly against the counter, my heart doing something weird in my chest. Not racing exactly, just alert. Because I'm not available, he continued. Handle it. Another pause. Then quieter. I don't repeat myself. Something about that line made my stomach tighten. This wasn't the Daniel I saw in the kitchen every morning making eggs. This wasn't the man who reminded Lily to put her shoes on. This was someone else. He ended the call a second later and stood there for a moment, like he was letting something settle before coming back inside. I stepped away quickly, pretending to rinse my glass when the door slid open. Everything okay? I asked, keeping my tone casual. Yeah, he said, like nothing had happened. Work? Something like that. I turned to face him. You always talk like that on work calls? He raised an eyebrow. Like what? Like you're in charge of something bigger than consulting. For a second, I thought I saw it again, that flicker behind his eyes. Then it was gone. You're reading too much into it, he said. Maybe I was, but it didn't feel like it. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. Not obsessively, just noticing. The car, for one. That same slightly worn sedan he drove everywhere. One afternoon, I needed to grab something from the glove compartment, and when I opened it, I expected the usual. Napkins, maybe a manual, random receipts. Instead, there was a small black card. No logo, no name, just a number embossed into it. I frowned, turning it over in my hand. It didn't look like a credit card. It looked expensive, like something you weren't supposed to just leave lying around. What are you doing? His voice made me jump. I looked up to see him standing by the driver's side door, watching me. I held up the card. This was in the glove compartment. His expression didn't change, but something in the air did. Put it back, he said. Not harsh, but firm. I hesitated. What is it? Just put it back. I slid it into the compartment slowly, closing it with a soft click. Okay? He held my gaze for a second longer, then opened the door and got in like nothing had happened. I stood there for a moment, my thoughts spinning. Just put it back. Not an explanation, not even an attempt at one, just a boundary.
and for some reason, that made me want to cross it even more. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. The phone call, the card, the way he shut things down without raising his voice. It didn't match the life he was showing me, and I couldn't ignore that anymore. So the next morning, after he dropped Lily off at school, I made a decision. I was going to find out what he wasn't telling me. I started small. His office, or what I assumed was his office, was really just a corner of the living room with a desk and his laptop. There weren't any filing cabinets, no stacks of paperwork, just the laptop. And it was always with him, except today. He'd left it. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart pounding harder than it should have been. This was a line.
I knew that, but so was marrying a stranger. I sat down slowly, lifting the lid. Password protected. Of course. I tried a couple of obvious things. Lily's name, his birthday, which I remembered from the paperwork, even something simple like password. Nothing. I let out a frustrated breath and leaned back. Of course you're not that easy, I muttered. I closed it, my curiosity still burning, but now mixed with something else. Frustration. Because whatever he was hiding, he was good at it. Too good. The next clue came later that afternoon. I was folding laundry, something I never thought I'd be doing so regularly, when his phone buzzed on the counter. He'd left it there while he was helping Lily with her homework. I wasn't going to look. I really wasn't. But then it buzzed again, and again. 3 times in a row. Something about the urgency pulled me in. I stepped closer, glancing toward the hallway to make sure they were still in Lily's room. Then I looked at the screen. Unknown number. No name. Just a preview of the message. They're asking questions. This isn't going to stay quiet. My chest tightened. Before I could stop myself, I picked up the phone. Another message came through. We need direction. Now. I swallowed hard, my fingers hovering over the screen like it might burn me. This wasn't normal. This wasn't consulting. I quickly set the phone back down when I heard footsteps, stepping away just as Daniel walked back into the kitchen. Everything okay? He asked, glancing at me. Yeah, I said, maybe a little too fast. Just laundry. He nodded, then picked up his phone. I watched his face carefully as he read the messages. Nothing. No reaction. Just that same calm expression. He typed something quickly, then set the phone down like it was nothing. How's Lily doing? I asked, trying to sound normal. She's fine, he said. And that was it. Like the messages didn't exist. Like whatever was going on didn't matter. But it did. I could feel it. Later that night, after Lily was asleep and the house had settled into its usual quiet, I found myself standing in the hallway again, staring at the closed door of the room he'd given me. My room. His room was down the hall, the one he'd been sleeping in since the wedding. Separate, safe, controlled. I took a slow breath, then walked toward it. I don't even know why. Maybe I was tired of not knowing. Maybe I was tired of feeling like I was living in the background of someone else's life. I knocked once. Yeah? His voice came from inside. I opened the door slowly. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, reading something on his phone. He looked up. What's wrong? I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. We need to talk, I said. His expression didn't change, but his attention shifted fully to me. About? I hesitated for just a second. Then I said it. About what you're not telling me. There was a long pause, the kind that stretches just enough to make your heart beat louder. I don't know what you mean, he said finally. Yes, you do. He stood up slowly, setting his phone down on the nightstand. Then explain it to me. I crossed my arms, trying to steady myself. The calls, the way you talk on them, the messages, that card in your car. I met his eyes. None of that matches the life you're pretending to live. Pretending? He repeated, his voice still calm but sharper now. Yes. Another pause. Then quietly, you went through my things. It wasn't a question.
I looked, I admitted, because nothing makes sense. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. You should have left it alone, he said. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It's a warning. Something in my chest tightened. I'm your wife, I said. I deserve to know who I married. His gaze locked onto mine, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something break through that calm exterior. Not anger, not exactly. Something darker, more serious. Do you? He asked quietly. The question hit harder than I expected. What is that supposed to mean? It means, he said, stepping a little closer, that you don't actually know what you're asking. Then tell me,
I held his gaze, refusing to back down. Tell me, and I'll decide that for myself. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything before it, like everything was balancing on the edge of something I couldn't see yet. And then finally, he spoke. You want the truth? He said. My heart skipped. Yes. He nodded once. Okay. That was it. Just one word. But the way he said it didn't feel like relief. It felt like everything was about to change. For a second, I thought he was going to back out. The way he looked at me, measured, almost like he was calculating something, made it feel like I had just stepped into a conversation he never planned to have. You're not going to like it, he said. That's not your decision to make, I replied, even though my voice didn't feel as steady as I wanted it to. Another pause, longer this time. Then he nodded once, like he'd made up his mind. All right, he said quietly, but if I tell you, there's no pretending after that. No going back to whatever this has been. I swallowed. There wasn't much to go back to anyway. That wasn't entirely true, but I didn't take it back. His eyes held mine for a second longer. Then he turned away, walking toward the window like he needed distance to say whatever came next. I don't do consulting, he said. I let out a small, humorless laugh. Yeah, I figured that much. He ignored that. I own things, he continued. Companies, assets, stakes in other people's companies. Some directly, some less directly. I frowned slightly, trying to piece it together. Okay, so you're what, like an investor? That's one way to put it. Then why not just say that? He glanced over his shoulder at me. Because investor doesn't cover it. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten again. Then what does? He turned back to face me fully this time, and whatever I saw in his expression made me stop asking casual questions. I make decisions that affect a lot of people, he said, and a lot of money. How much money? I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't hesitate. Enough that I stopped counting a long time ago. I blinked. That's not funny. I'm not joking. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. You're saying you're, what, rich? Yes. How rich? He exhaled slowly, like he didn't want to answer that part. More than your stepfather could ever imagine, he said finally. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. You live in a 2-bedroom house, I said, my voice sharper now. You drive a car that looks like it's 10 years old. You, 15, he corrected calmly. That's not the point. It kind of is. I shook my head, pacing slightly now. No, it's not.
None of this makes sense. If you have that kind of money, why are you living like this? Because I choose to. Why? Because it's simpler. Simpler than what? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked past me, opened the door, and checked the hallway briefly before closing it again. That small action, so deliberate, so cautious, sent another wave of unease through me. What are you doing? I asked, making sure Lily's asleep. My chest tightened at the reminder of her. She doesn't know? I asked. No. You're kidding. I don't joke about things like this. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process everything. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're telling me you're, what, some kind of secret millionaire? Billionaire? And you're just pretending to be normal? I am normal. No, you're not, I shot back. Normal people don't have mystery phone calls at night telling other people what to do like they run the world. His expression didn't change. I don't run the world, he said, but you run something. Yes. The way he said it, so calm, so certain, made my skin prickle. And the messages? I pressed. The one I saw today. They're asking questions. What does that mean? His jaw tightened slightly. It means exactly what it sounds like. That doesn't help. It's not supposed to. I let out a frustrated breath. Then why tell me any of this if you're not going to actually explain it? Because you asked for the truth, he said, not the details. That's the same thing. No, he said firmly. It's not. We stared at each other for a long moment, the tension thick enough to feel. You think I'm lying, he added. I think you're hiding something, I said. Still, I am, he admitted. That threw me off. You just said you were telling me the truth. I am. But you're still hiding things. Yes. I laughed under my breath, shaking my head. That doesn't make any sense. It does, he said. You just don't have the full picture yet. Then give it to me. No. That single word hit harder than anything else. Why not? Because it's not just my picture to give. I frowned. What does that mean? It means there are things involved that you don't understand, he said. And the more you know, the more complicated your life becomes. My life is already complicated, I snapped.
I married a man I didn't choose. I'm living in a house that doesn't feel like mine. And now you're telling me you're secretly, what, some kind of powerful figure with people asking questions about you? He didn't respond immediately. Then quietly, exactly. The honesty in that answer knocked the anger out of me for a second. I just stood there, staring at him, trying to reconcile the man in front of me with the life he was describing. You don't look like someone like that, I said finally. I know. That's the point, isn't it? I added, my voice lowering as something clicked into place. You don't want people to know. Correct. Why? He hesitated. And for the first time since this conversation started, he looked tired. Because the last time people knew, it cost me more than I was willing to lose, he said. My chest tightened. Your wife, I said softly. His eyes flicked up to mine. That's part of it. Part of it, not all of it. What happened to her? I asked. He held my gaze for a long moment. An accident, he said. But something in his voice didn't sit right.
What kind of accident? The kind that doesn't need to be revisited, he replied. That was a wall, a solid one, and I knew pushing it right now wouldn't get me anywhere. I exhaled slowly, stepping back a little. This is insane, I muttered. Do you hear how this sounds? I do. And you expect me to just accept it? I expect you to decide what you want to do with it, he said. What does that mean? It means, he said, his voice steady again, if this isn't something you can live with, we figure something else out. I blinked. Something else? Yes. You mean leave? If that's what you want. The words hung in the air between us. For a second, everything went quiet in my head. Leave? I hadn't even thought that far ahead. This whole time, I'd been focused on surviving the situation, not escaping it. You just let me go? I asked. I'm not holding you here, he said. I almost laughed. Really? Because it felt a lot like I didn't have a choice when this started. That wasn't me, he said. No, it wasn't, I admitted. But it still happened. Another pause. So now you do have a choice, he said. And I'm giving it to you. I looked at him, really looked at him this time. At the calm surface that hid something much deeper. At the man who made breakfast every morning and tucked his daughter into bed at night. At the man who might be telling the truth or might be hiding something far worse. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not anger, something else. Curiosity. Dangerous, stupid curiosity. Or, he added quietly, you stay, and you accept that there are things you won't know, at least not right away. I let that sink in. Stay, leave. Two options that both felt like stepping into something unknown. I should have chosen the safer one. I should have walked away, gone back to the mess I came from and pretended none of this ever happened. But instead, I heard myself say, I'm not leaving. The moment the words left my mouth, something changed in his expression. Subtle, but there. Then understand this, he said, his voice lower now. If you stay, you're part of this, whether you realize it or not. A chill ran down my spine. Part of what exactly? I asked. He held my gaze. And this time, he didn't soften it. Everything. The words settled heavy in the room, like it carried more weight than I could see. And for the first time, I realized I hadn't just married a stranger. I had stepped into a life that was already in motion. A life with rules I didn't understand. A life that might not let me leave as easily as he claimed. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning.